Welcome to Vialet Studio, where Vialet and her guests share stories of their passions, inspirations, and spiritual journeys. Vialet creates a sacred and fun space for individuals to be able to share information about themselves, their work, and their community. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet. Vialet Rayne.
Well, welcome everyone to Vialet Studio. I'm excited today to be talking to Crystal, who has written a book called Angels and Goddesses that I can't wait to hear all about. I'm so excited. Yes, I love the book. So Crystal, tell me, what was your journey? How did you begin to start connecting to these beautiful beings, and how were you guided along this path? Because I love to hear those stories.
Sure. Well, I'm still being guided. I'm definitely like on the path still. It's not like I went on the path and now I'm in heaven floating around or something. I mean, I'm still walking, let me put it that way, through what I call the world of appearances, which is this place that we call reality that is not real, because the only real thing is what is resonating with God's love, which actually expresses through all the different realms. But we live in this kind of curious band frequency, or this curious dimension in which there seem to be a whole lot of situations that are not loving. And those include everything from illness to the appearance we call death, to hostility, to being separated from the divine, separated from one another, separated from light beings and nature beings, and of course the threat of war and all this stuff that is right now concerning so many people. These are all like appearances, because they are manifestations in which there does not seem to be love prevailing. And so how I got on this path, actually, I think I already knew on some level what I came for, but it took me a while to figure it out. I was very much a slow learner in that respect. And I think one of the things that comes as a relief to me when I think about my my childhood, which was actually when I started learning about metaphysics and the power of the mind and stuff, because of my mom, who was this extremely, really a very special light being, Maya Del Mar, who was a scientist and a teacher and an activist, and ended up getting into esoteric stuff when I was a kid. And so I'm a Cancer, and I was always really close to her. I mean, we're several siblings, but she would like do something and I'd say, oh, that's neat, let's check it out. And so she taught me how to use intentions, interpret dreams, since, I was about 8.5 when this kind of communication started with her. Then when I was 12, she taught me how to do astrology charts, and she started taking me to various teachers when I was still a child, like Joseph Campbell and Dorothy McLean and other teachers that would come to San Francisco. I'm from a little bit north of San Francisco. And I loved it all, but it was just like something I thought was part of life's pleasure. I wasn't really thinking I'm going to do this for work. What I really wanted to do for work at that point in my life was to be a civil rights lawyer. And so I was all geared up, trying to get good grades so I could get scholarships in good schools and this sort of thing. And I did get good grades, and I did get into good schools at a pretty early age. But I eventually ended up getting through a problem, a really bad health problem that came up on a close friend of mine, ended up getting more deeply into all this information that I had in terms of books and practices I had done before and stuff, like to go a step further, because I wasn't really applying those in very effective ways until that time. And so because of the challenge, and I'm really sure that if there hadn't been like this really challenging situation, I would not have gone the extra mile in terms of the effort that it took for me to begin to change certain mind patterns. And then everything, I mean, in my life, a lot of things really started to flow, like everything I wanted to happen would just kind of unfold. And I realized that what I really wanted, I mean, that this was really what excited me, sharing this kind of information with others. And and then the doors kind of just started opening up for that to happen. As I imagine you've gone through some similar things with your center, which you say is large, and your bookstore and that kind of project, because these type of spiritual endeavors, they take a lot of work. And either there has to be also like some kind of energy of blessing. Do you agree, Vialet? I mean, like an energy of this kind of, you're on the right path. This is what the universe is supporting you for. And so after I had been really deeply into spiritual science, I started getting more into the aspect of angels. And one thing just kind of led to another. At this point, I very much feel like I had already chosen this particular line from an earlier time, but I was kind of like a slow learner. I was like in a combination of like mental fog and my own little ideas. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't understand that there was this really exciting option. It's so wonderful to be able to heal, to be able to help people connect with their own inner power in relation to the divine, to lift their vibration, to connect with light beings and stuff. This is like, for me, incredibly exciting. I feel very, very blessed with this particular line of work, but it really kind of came together by a lot of graceful happenings that at the time I was really kind of slow on the pickup.
I love that. And I was checking out your book. I haven't saw it in person, but I want to order it for our store.
Thank you very much.
I work with angels and I work with goddesses.
Wow.
Combine them together. So I am interested in hearing how it came together, where these energies work together, because it looks like your book, that's what you've done. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, I decided in 2011, one of the things that happened for me when I started getting into the teaching was a lot of media venues opened. And so one of the spaces that I'd been invited to was to a program, a women's TV program. And I was doing horoscopes with affirmations on there and giving tips for manifestation and stuff. And so I remember one day I left the program and I just felt like I wanted to do something different, like something related to spirituality and stuff, but it was like I was ready for something different. And so according to me, I got this great idea of angelic intelligence as a new type of acuity that could be awoken, that's like beyond physical intelligence, emotional intelligence, and all these other kinds of intelligences that are spoken of today. And in connection with our higher perception and fields of light beings. And so I went about getting into the different 7 archangels. There are different systems, but 2 of them, the 12 archangel and the 7 archangel systems, correspond to this line of study that I got into. And I was really excited about how each of the different archangels was like a spectrum of a series of spiritual principles, like Sadkiel, who I feel very closely connected to, purple, forgiveness, transmutation, prayer, release, and very specifically the light body. And that's just to mention a few. And then Michael with faith, protection, victory, divine victory, strength, and so on. And so I had actually been working, I had been teaching forgiveness, I'd been teaching healing, I'd been teaching prosperity, and each of the archangels has these different specialties. And so I actually went about writing a book for each archangel, and had kind of, and I think you probably can identify with some of this as a highly intuitive person, that there's this sense sometimes of like, you don't bite off. It's not like you're biting off more than you can chew out of an apple. You're like biting off more than you can chew out of a planet or something. I mean, it's just like the amount that one feels inspired to take on can sometimes be really a lot. And so what ended up happening as I got more into the symbolism of each archangel was that I started seeing adjacent symbols from goddesses, from ancient goddesses. And I mean, I've been reading pagan lore and mythology and stuff since my childhood. And so when I started, like Uriel, who's the archangel of supply and of our connection to the earth and gratitude. And he's got colors like red and gold, and relates to the vibration and consciousness of opulence. And so I started seeing these parallels between different goddesses. I mean, each archangel has a whole lot of connections to different goddesses, but Lakshmi is also red and gold, and Uriel is related also to precious metals, and she has this pot with gold streaming from it, and these elephants that are by her side that represent the strength of the monsoon storm and this outpouring of divine supply. And that is these symbols are very much related to Uriel's symbols. And so this stuff started coming out at the beginning, and I started getting really excited about this because another line of reading that I had enjoyed before was about the anthropology that indicates today, and archaeology, that there was a time thousands of years ago around the whole world when women had a more important role in spiritual and healing activities. And this was before patriarchal systems and institutionalized religions ended up surfacing. And so these goddesses have roots in these ancient traditions that recognized both masculine and feminine energies, but understood the value of the feminine ability to connect with the higher realms, understood the value of the feminine sensitivity that allowed their healing. For instance, there are these, tell me if I'm streaming on so much, I just get really excited about the topic because it's really, really fascinating. And I'm saying this not as so much as an authority on this subject as someone who discovered these links, and I'm inviting anyone else to look into them for themselves too, because of course I share a lot of specific concrete ways to connect with these forces in my book, but I really felt like I was just scratching the surface. For instance, in the Himalayas today, there are these healers, they're called Savara healers, that are from their tradition, they're women mainly, and they're from a tradition of Parna Savardi, who was and is a goddess of healing, who relates to the woods. Archangel Raphael relates to the woods. Her color is green. Her symbols are leaves. And she also has a staff, and which is a symbol of authority, as does Raphael. And her healers, among other things, have to know how to see beyond the insubstantiality of illness to a higher reality. That's one of the techniques that they use. And so Raphael relates to spiritual truth and also to science, both spiritual science and physical science, and relates to nature and nature spirits. And so the connections are really amazing. And for me, it was like this refreshing experience of no longer feeling like the only concrete roots of religion or spirituality were these kind of dim, dark, guilt-based, excuse me for being so forthright about it, because I do really respect everybody's religious tendencies, and I have a lot of like Catholics in my groups and all kinds of people. It's not like I'm against religion, but for me personally, to find these roots in these traditions that were like pre-religious of the angels and that were like uplifting in terms of the recognition of the sacred feminine was really exciting. And so there's a close connection. It was like the 7 archangels, these are archetypes. I call them archetypes of divine good, but the system of the 7 archangels was integrated into religious thought in Europe in several hundred years ago. And it was based on the writings of an anonymous monk named Pseudo Dionysius. And so it talks about each of the archangels being like, a color. And of course, when you get into this, you find all these other convergences, the color, the energy, the chakra, the stones, etc. But the fascinating thing too is that nobody really knows where that teaching came from. And there are indications that it was probably based on some very ancient Egyptian teachings. And so but it was at the time in Europe, like sort of absorbed into the theology circles. And so when one comes upon likely basis of these archangels in traditions that predate institutional religion altogether, and in which women had a very important role, it's just really exciting. And it cannot be denied. I mean, I just mentioned a couple of cases and I did it sort of superficially, but the convergences and the number of parallels between the goddesses and the archangels are just fascinating.
I love that. I love that. I had somebody recently, because I work with angels as well, tell me that they didn't connect with angels because they thought that was religious. And I said, angels aren't religion. They're energies that have been here for a long, long time.
Exactly.
They're not Catholic. They're not Protestant. They're divine beings of energy that support us in our everyday life. And maybe the church has connected them, but doesn't mean they were connected. They were here way before that ever happened and been with us, forever. So it's interesting that the church has changed not only the viewpoint, but several viewpoints, that people think that only angels are connected to churches and religion. And so I love it when I can say, just have an open mind, ask to connect with them, see what the possibilities are and how your life shifts.
Perfect.
When you take the time to connect and spend time with them, right?
Yeah.
I love the angelic realm. And so, when I talk to people that are very new, Crystal, a lot of people are just awakening and opening up to possibilities outside of everything else. And so I love for them to have an open mind to seek more information. So, a lot of people also believe that they're not worthy enough to connect to the angels, right? They have this notion or belief that they can't. And it's like, they love to work with us. And so what do you share with your students, your clients, the people that come to you about being able to connect to these divine beings and these goddesses? What are some of the ways that we can work with them and connect with them?
Okay. Well, that's a really good question. Your line of talk is also really interesting, and I'd like to know about how your path and how you ended up getting into the connections with the light beings and stuff.
I've always been connected since I was a child.
Are you a medium?
I've
Yeah.
felt things as a small child that scared my parents, and visions and prophecy. I always would know what was going to happen in the future. And so I've always walked with these beings and worked with these beings my entire life. It was just second nature to me.
Wow.
To know that they were around me and part of what I do. And today I teach Angelic Reiki, which is a really powerful healing modality. So I teach my students about the angels and, how to connect with them and how to work with them, because they're really a big part of what I do. So, recently I had someone and I met with them and they're like talking about your guides and your guardians and all that. And I said, well, what about our angels? Oh, no, angels are religious. And I said, oh, that's too bad. Because they're not. They're part of this realm, just like I believe in fairies and dragons and elementals because I see them. They're all part of this. And when you're open to that perspective, it widens your view on what's around us and what we can work with. And the angelic realm is just a beautiful place that I love to work with. The angels in the angelic kingdom, as well as goddesses and ascended masters and elementals and all these beautiful energies that want to give us love and support and help us on our journey if we're open to it.
That's lovely. And so do you give readings too?
I do. I do Akashic record readings and intuitive readings, and mediumship comes in. So I'm also an open channel. So I just kind of step out of the way to whatever divine has available for anyone that comes forward. So I'm kind of open to all of it. So it's always very, very fascinating on what comes through and what people need and what they need to hear at the moment and what they're working with. But I love meeting folks like you that are out there sharing more information about all these beautiful beings and how people can connect and have relationships and integrate, because it's important that we integrate these processes in our lives, that it's not just an education piece, but how do you work in these energies to better your life, because they definitely want to help us.
Yeah, for sure. I really like your energy, and you're really sweet, and I feel like giving you a hug and getting a hug from you. So I feel honored to connect with you, and I'm seeing Kuan Yin coming through here in relationship to you, like you're holding a high vibration of her energy right now. So anyway, as for people connecting with the light beings, well, first of all, to recognize our own divinity is, I think, really helpful. I mean, this is like some things that are different from what people may hear in other places or in other books, which is why I'm going to share that perspective right now. More than like a series of techniques. I share a lot of techniques in my book, and in our times there are lots of wonderful techniques out there, and I'm sure you have a lot of techniques too, and that would be fun to discuss and interchange. But I want to stress first that one of the things that strikes me when I work with groups and stuff is that people seem to refer mainly to angels as like something that you call on to fix things for you, or to somehow kind of do what you can't do for yourself. And although that's one of the many things that they do, our own mindset and frequency and mental patterns and energy are really important to open up to the connection, and also to empower our lives. It's not like, I don't really see angels so much as like the fix-it team, as more like collaborators on our spiritual journey, which is so exciting nowadays with all the information there is around, and how we know that we can work on forgiveness or heal our self-esteem or do a positive prayer or visualize to manifest. All these ways that people nowadays are working on ourselves with our wonderful, powerful, divine gifts that make us true avatars walking the earth. But a lot of times we feel stuck. Usually, anyway, despite all of these gifts, and despite the fact that we have a peak or wonderful experiences. And so when we are working on ourselves from within and knowing ourselves to be very powerful divine beings, and this puts us into a much more facile relationship with the light beings who contribute to these processes in us. And so, for instance, if I'm stuck in resentment or anger, and which sometimes happens, and I call on the angels of forgiveness or of alchemical love to help me through this, if I'm saying the prayer or invocation just as this kind of little fix it thing for what I've got going on inside, I'm not going to get the same results that I can get when I actually work on my own inner attitude. And it's the combination of putting my focus and my intention on my personal inner transmutation and spiritual empowerment, and also connecting with the light beings, that makes it really exciting. And the kind of results that I get, it really are much stronger. Another way of describing this, Archangel Michael, who's like a divine rescuer, and really brings in all kinds of protection and stuff. But if I call on Michael and his colleagues in the light realm, which include Simhamukha, this wonderful Tibetan goddess who has a whole lot in common with Michael, who's also a divine victor, and called, one of her names is the Mother of All Conquerors. And so if I call on this group of light beings that are related usually to blue, and who are often related to strong animals that are important hunters, because we're talking about angelic forces that can hunt out the lower vibrations and transmute them or get rid of them, cut through them and so forth. If I do that from a standpoint of like, I'm trembling and I'm begging, I'm going to get a different result than if I recognize that I also have this, what I call Michaelic faculties of confidence, knowing that my word is powerful, of being firm in my intention and request, and feeling like the truth that I am an emissary of these energies in the world, not just this. There's actually an old Catholic prayer about even though I'm a worm, it says something like, even though I'm a worm squirming on the ground, you can come and help me. And so if I'm affirming even subconsciously that I'm some kind of worm or some sort of undeserving or weak being, I'm not really doing activating my full spectrum of personal possibilities and vibrational connections to light beings. What do you think of that?
I love that. I love that, because I think what we forget is we're all accountable and responsible for our own actions, our own thoughts, and our own what we put out as intentions. And that accountability is important. We can't say, hey, come and save me. It's like the person that wants to find the perfect job, and they're like, I'm looking for this job. Okay, how's this job going to find you? They're not going to come and knock on the door and go, hey, Crystal, I have a job for you. It takes our efforts, our actions, our thoughts, our attitudes to attract, to find, to locate that, doesn't mean that there aren't some beautiful divine beings and circumstances that are crossing your path, because these divine beings are trying to help you find what you're looking for. But we have a responsibility and an accountability in all of this as well. And we have to be part of the process. And I really think that's important for everyone to understand. And I loved how you mentioned earlier accepting that we're divine beings, that we have divinity within ourselves, and that we are worthy and are gifted with many things to help us navigate this realm, this dimension. To have, I believe we're here to have joyful, fulfilling, prosperous lives. And I think everybody can have those if they want them. It's choice. It's how we choose, what we choose to think, what we choose to say, what we choose to do. That has a big impact on whether we have that.
For sure. And I loved what you just said about us being part of the process. And I really like that fragment of a sentence. It's very empowering, and it mobilizes us. And it reminds me a little bit of another goddess related to Uriel, whose name is Bridget, the Celtic goddess. And she was also a goddess of prosperity, but she was a really busy woman. She was also a metal worker, a healer, protectress of agriculture. She was actively involved with her marital partner, Lou. And she represents to me that other side of the Uriel angel energies. She's also related to the color red and also to precious metals like Uriel. And she is like that part of us that it's like Lakshmi represents this divine grace pouring out abundantly for everyone. And Bridget is like the part of us that can step ahead in our lives. In fact, her steps on the earth, when she would have contact with the earth in early February, this corresponds with the time of year when the sun is moving from its low point at winter solstice toward, it's the halfway point between that and spring equinox, when the sun's going to be a lot fuller. And at this point, the ancient Mayans said that the sun, even though the ground was still dark and cold, the energy of the sun was able to reach through the ground into the kernel of life inside the seeds. And the Celtic metaphor for this with Bridget is that she was now imbued with the energy of the sun, her partner, her consort, who is the sun, and the light of their union actually radiated through the soles of her feet. So she's walking on the earth, and her steps put this energy into the earth that activates the seeds. And but it's this action, she's taking the steps, and she has all these talents, and she uses the talents. And so that what you're just saying about us being a part of the process, like really a full part of the process, I think is really important. And it's also related to this idea of confidence and of not being, that spirituality isn't necessarily passive. Even when we're doing inner work, it's not necessarily passive.
No, it takes, living on this planet within this dimension is not easy. I don't think
Definitely not
easy, right?
No.
It is an education course of how do you move gracefully through the energy. So, a lot of people say, well, you're spiritual, so your life has to be full of light, love, and compassion. Yes, it is, but it also has challenges and victories and obstacles. And I believe it's how we gracefully move through all of those challenges, all of those obstacles, all those bumps in the road. How do we pull together our tools, our divine gifts, and all of that to move as quickly and as gracefully as we can through those time frames. You know, I know that when I wasn't connected with my gifts, I might sit what I call challenges for months, weeks, not being able to move through them, being stuck, being not able to go through. And today I have tools, I have rituals, I have prayers, I have energies that I work with that allow me to move through quicker, more gracefully, more compassionately, more connected, more understanding. Oh, I see what this is about. I see where I was off path, or I see where I needed to be realigned, or I see what's important, right? And all these things, I think for me spiritually, and I won't talk about everyone, but I'm constantly processing things that are happening in my life. So what is that? Where am I stuck? Is there resentment? Is there fear? Am I standing in love? You know, what is that a mirror to my shadow? Do I need to work on me? It's an action item. It never stops.
Right.
We're continually growing, expanding, learning about ourselves, about others, about the evolution through the process.
Yeah.
You can't do that on the sideline. You got to be in the game.
Very well put. Yeah. And it's a full game, and the inner work is so important and so powerful. And for me, positive prayer is a really important basis of that inner work, and that way of changing my mental patterns, which can get very much trapped in low vibrational beliefs, to the patterns that are open to the force of the divine, which is infinite, which is love, which is always there, and which does respond to our attention. And I know this is said in a lot of places today, but one of the most exciting things that has happened for me with my work over the last maybe 7 years is that the ability, because of training my mind continually in these patterns. And I'm not saying this, I mean, I really like what you just shared about how you're always working on yourself. So am I, always working on myself. And a lot of times when I think, you know, oh, I've really got this down, or I'm really good at taking care of this kind of situations. And then I discover, like you were talking about looking at your shadow, you know, I'll discover some limiting belief or anxiety or a distraction or something like that, that really makes me feel like, you know, kind of stupid. And then I go back into working that other level or that other layer. But what has ended up happening is through doing this, partly through doing this continually, persistently, and also I think working in a spirit of service. So the energy of loving service is really important. Although there are a lot of confusion around loving service, because we have these false beliefs about how spiritual people are supposed to sacrifice, and loving service means you know, everybody can just walk all over you and take away your energy, and if you have any kind of limits, then you're not really being spiritual, and this sort of thing. I mean, that's another area that is definitely for me been part of my education in this path, and still is, because those sort of feelings that we are somehow unworthy, or that because you're spiritual, I mean, you said something about, you know, you're always supposed to be in harmony, and you're never supposed to be dealing with challenges and this sort of thing. These false stereotypes about being spiritual, and especially about being a spiritual helper, teacher, channel, healer, or whatever. It's important to have some discernment about that. But the energy of doing one's work with love, and of letting oneself be guided by love to help others in the ways that we are called to, also tends to increase the intensity of our frequency vibration. In fact, this is sort of embarrassing what I'm going to say, but I feel guided to say it anyway. I've trained other people with my healing methods, which are very effective. I mean, It's exciting for me because I've had cases of like people with lupus or epilepsy or even problems with their bones that come out in x-rays and stuff, that after 2 sessions have had total spontaneous remissions. And I treat like groups when I give a conference. I really liked what you did at the beginning of our session, and I'm going to follow that inspiration of calling in the different light beings and stuff to the. I have a pretty large group interactions also, and online these days mainly. And I really liked that. And another thing that I do is that if I'll start the session by asking if anybody has pain, because I don't like them to be carrying pain during the session. And so I apply these keys for maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes, and most of the people's pain goes entirely away. And everybody almost always gets at least an 80% improvement in palpable improvement in the pain being gone away. Why am I saying this? It's not just because I love my work, I feel graced with it, but we all have these circuits. I mean, and the power of our words and the power of our beliefs is so great that we can all work miracles, literally. And I'm getting my hand energies activated as I say this to you. We have these circuits in our bodies. I'm sure you'll agree with me, Vialet, that our main being is not the being that we see with a certain color of eyes and a certain shape of our mouth and so forth. Our main being is actually this incredibly luminous expression that has all of these powers, and it will come through as we work on ourselves, as we continue to do the inner work and continue to erase the kind of energy strings that are trapping us in the world of limitation or the world of appearances. I sort of went off on a tangent, I think, but I felt like for some reason, I had to say this. So like I've trained other people to also awaken their healing gifts. Mine are in a continual process of awakening. I don't feel like I'm a finished product in any of this, but they have really good results too. And it's just because we all have this nature. We are all inherently powerful healers and powerful transmitters and powerful pillars of victory and peace, which the planet is calling us to apply right now.
I love that. I love that. You know, I always tell my students, the masters know nothing. And they will tell you that even though they've mastered certain areas of their lives, they know there's still so much to learn, that you're never complete. You're never finished. That you're constantly evolving, growing. It's part of the evolution process. And when you think you know all the answers and you know it all, you really are the fool, because you don't know, because there's so much to know, to embrace, to bring in. So it's being very open. And, you know, for those listening, know that you're as powerful as any one of us. The work that we do is not special to us. We all have gifts and abilities and purpose and direction. It's just about understanding where you're at, knowing who you are, continually processing and working on yourself, and being open to being guided. Because every once in a while, I don't know about you, Crystal, but it requires that I surrender to the process and I don't control everything, because it's not about control. It's about being in flow with all the energies around you and who you are. And that means that we have to heal, we have to release, we have to let go, we have to surrender what we think we know, so that we can be open to what we could know in the universe. And I think that's the most powerful way to live and to move forward in life, is to be that curious, innocent child that is constantly asking questions, constantly wanting to know more, because that's how we grow and that's how we evolve.
Yeah, I love that. That's really beautiful. And it's also how we can have fun and enjoy, because sometimes we make it a lot of work. And I mean, it is work, but it can be fun work. And there's this chart of different mindsets that some psychologists use, that has a vibrational level associated with each different mindset. I'm sure you've seen this before, Vialet, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it goes up from like feelings of depression, I mean, at the very bottom, and then it goes up through anger and all these different kind of levels. And towards the top, we get love and then bliss, but the very top, which is supposedly the highest vibration of all in terms of mindsets, and one I don't think I personally am able to be in most of the time, is called games. And this doesn't refer to like games of manipulation, but rather like seeing life as a game. And as I'm speaking with you, which for me I'm feeling comforted by this conversation and connection that you are talking about always being in this process, and that's very similar to how I live it too, even though it sounds prettier the way you say that than how I live it. It's like, keeping my attention placed on what's going on inside me, and what I can do to coordinate that with a higher perspective, higher vibrations, higher attitudes, higher realms. And when we're in this modality, in terms of connecting with light beings, if we look at it as what you were just, the way you were describing it, as a combination of sort of, and I very much agree with that. I say that life is a university, a wonderful university, and there's so much to learn. And we are living in this time when there's all kinds of information, so many books at our fingertips, and a lot of people working on ourselves and activating these connections with light realms, even though we're not consciously doing it. A lot of people are not consciously doing this, but they are actually doing it through their self and inner work. And if we can see this as a game, like this wonderful little old metaphysical book by Florence Scovel called The Game of Life, like see this kind of perspective as a play, then we can be doing it with a light touch that will allow us to flow with the energy and flow with the results. And the other thing about that perspective is that when we develop a habit of going within, and if we include in this habit spending a few moments with our attention quietly placed on other information that can be coming in about whatever it is that we're working on or dealing with, or a person that we want to help or whatever, then we will oftentimes spontaneously see these light beings, goddesses, and angels, and plant spirits too, and nature spirits that are sharing information, sharing guidance for ourselves, and also when we set out to heal another.
I love that. I love that. Well, I loved having all these conversations and all these talks today, and I'm really so happy that you were part of it. I want to let everyone know that we will have Crystal's books in the store. You can also reach out to her website. I looked at it today. It has several different offerings of classes and all kinds of information where you can go and connect with her and get to work with her if you would like. And so we will have her website on the video.
Great, thank you so much. We'll have your website up there too. I'll ask my publicist to do that.
I would love that. And thank you so much for taking the time this morning to hang out with us.
Thank you so much. You're really lovely. I've really enjoyed it. And I would be very open to connecting with you more in whatever way that happens to open up.
I love that.
I'm-
I love that.
You're obviously a jewel. You know, I love amethyst, and amethyst is the name of Sadkiel's, the Archangel Sadkiel's feminine complement. And you seem like a really bright purple jewel for the world. And I really appreciate, I haven't had direct experience with like a class format of yours, but I'm sure you do really, really wonderful work. And I love your combination of humility and sensitivity. And you're definitely a great channel for goddess forces.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for being on today, folks. We hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet and how she can help you discover your spiritual gifts, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com and on YouTube at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you really soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Come experience the difference at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.